Going on YouTube? This is Black Bigot coming to you live, but not live. This is a podcast. We're talking to Robert Gunnell. I've spoken to him 2 times before. Uh, a very fascinating, fantastic story that he has. He's had multiple encounters with UFOs, with aliens. We're discussing his story tonight. Robert, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. Having some dinner with my wife and her friend and my family. Got my daughter, and we're just hanging out, having a good evening. And, how about yourself? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get into this story.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Gunnell has told me his story before, but we're doing it on the podcast just to let you guys listen to it, and just to let you know, he does have a YouTube channel, and the link to that channel will be in the description box below in this video, and also the past 2 videos will also be linked in the box below. So anyways, we're going to talk about a very odd story that occurred with you, where you told me that you had stayed for a while in your uncle's cabin. If you could tell the listeners what happened with that.
Absolutely. So this would have been right after my second experience. So I was 12 when that happened. So I was about 13 years old, and I want to say this would have been the summer of '96. And summer of '96, about June of '96, I believe it was, that we went up to Salt Lake City, and I was visiting my real grandmother that we had found, of my dad's real mom, because he was adopted from California. So we had tracked down our real blood family on my dad's side, and we went up there to visit them and meet them for the first time. And so I met my real grandma, Betty. Their last name's Gill, like a fish gill. And then my uncle John Gill, and then his son Johnny, and his other son Josh. My 2 cousins, Johnny and Josh. Which these guys, they actually live in Hawaii now, but at the time they were up in Salt Lake City, and we were going to go up to Ogden and Provo over the weekend. And I can't remember if it was Ogden or Provo, but I know we had a cabin up in one of those 2 spaces. I can look it up later, but anyway, we were up in the cabin. We make it up there. We're having a good time. We're helping my uncle build a little bit on the cabin, some little projects and stuff. We were kids, so we didn't know too much about craftsmanship at that point. So we're up there just doing our thing, and he says, why don't you guys go out and get some fresh air? I'm like, okay. So we go outside, and we're walking around and hanging out around the campfire that we had. And the sundown was already starting to occur, but up in Utah, if you're familiar, sundown, we're talking like the sun goes down super late up there. Like, it was about 11, almost midnight by the time the sun actually set all the way. So this would have been probably around 11 o'clock at night that we were still up and doing our thing. And it was me, my brother Forrest and Carl, and then my cousins Johnny and Josh. And we were all walking around, a group of 5 of us, and we were about 500 yards away from the cabin at the bottom of this little hillside that went up about 30 feet. And the sky was becoming very black. The sun had finally started to set. And then, of course, the sun was to the west, and we're facing north, looking into the northern sky. And it's a black sky. We can see the stars. And then out of the blue, we see this huge red dome light, like a blood red light. I mean, I'm talking, this thing was probably, I want to say, like, it was casting radiance about 600 yards. It was that big. The whole sky lit up for about 600 yards in the northern direction up of this little 30-foot hill. And then we started hearing a cow just mooing, this kind of, like it sounded distressed, And we're all looking at each other like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, seriously? And I look at my cousins, and we're just kind of like ghost light, you know, like we're all just kind of stuck in the dark, like, was that a cow? Because it sounded like a cow, but it didn't really sound like one. It sounded like a cow that was like screaming almost, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, right. I've heard cattle, like, before they get slaughtered, they know they're getting slaughtered, they say. So I know what that distress sounds like.
Yeah. So it was like the eeriest thing, you know. Like I've heard lambs get slaughtered. You know, I at one point I saw cows get slaughtered later on, but I hadn't heard it up to this point. And so we're like, I'm not going up there. Are you gonna go up there? No, hell no way. Like I don't know what that light is. I don't know why that cow is mooing, if that's a cow or whatever the hell it is that's up there screaming. I don't want to find out. And like we all just got together. We ran back to the cabin. We told my Uncle John. He came outside. There was no more light, and he goes, "Well, I don't see anything. I don't hear anything up that way. Why don't you guys just stay in the house for the night? And I don't want you to, go back up there tonight." So he went and killed the fire that was outside. Let it burn down to embers or whatever. And he told us all to go inside, and we went upstairs and we were playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out on the Nintendo, upstairs, and we were up for maybe like another hour and a half or so, I think, and then we passed out. Well, the following morning, we regrouped. We had some cereal. I remember my uncle was complaining about some cereal he bought, and the mice that were up in the cabin up there, they got into it. They got really crafty and got into a table and ate holes into it. So he ended up making us fresh breakfast. And so I remember all this stuff happening. And that same night that we saw the UFO, my cousin Josh that was with us, he ended up lighting his clothing on fire that same evening from standing next to one of those halogen lights. Like, he was like 2 feet away from it.
Wow,
yeah. The whole backside, but yeah. So it was a weird evening, really, really eventful, And so in the morning, we had breakfast, and, back then, we all, like, how it is, like, our generation, we would go out and play. Like, literally, like, as kids, we would go outside and run around and, like, play in the dirt and ride bikes or whatever. So, when my uncle and my mom, they were like, "Hey, why don't you guys go outside and play? And that way, your uncle can get some work done on the cabin, and you guys can go and hang out with the cousins." It's like, okay. So we're out walking outside, and just doing our thing, and then it hit me. I go, I kind of wonder what that was last night. Like, and so I told everybody, like, hey, well, let's go walk up there. It's daylight. There's nothing really to worry about now. So we walk up the hill, a little 30-foot hill that went up, and then by the time we get to the top of it, we got maybe like 20 yards from the edge of the top of the hill, and we find the body of a cow. Just one cow. It's got a tag on it from like a farm from like 5 miles down the road. And this cow looks like somebody turned its skin into one of those plastic vacuum bags and attached a hose to it and sucked all the air and blood and whatever out of this cow. Like, all you could see was the skin with the, the fur, the black and white fur, and then the bones. Like, it looked like it had sat out in the sun for like 2 years straight and just never decayed. It was that, it was just creepy, really creepy. And we get up there, we're looking at it, and we went down, we told my uncle, and he's like, "I don't want you guys going up there anymore, stay away from that hill." He's like, "We don't have any cattle around here, the closest farm is miles down the road. We have fences all around here, so there's no reason for them to get up here onto his property." Because, they would have those gates that, like, go through the roads to keep the cows from going through, like, their hoof would get caught or whatever. Like, they had ways to keep them out, so there was no way that a cow, especially from 5 miles away, would end up, on his property without, like, getting stuck in, like, several different fences and, wires and, there was, I don't know what they call it, but it was like a cattle fence, and they had stuff to keep them out if it came down to it. But this particular cow was all by itself, and it was just completely sucked dry. And I remember my uncle making the joke about like a chupacabra or something, And I'm thinking, okay, well, chupacabras don't drive UFOs. Like, that's what hit me. I was
Right,
like,
yeah.
I was like, chupacabras don't have a bright red light that's like 600 yards wide.
Right.
And then, into the air 600 yards. Like, it was like a half circle straight up into the sky. And I was like, look, John, I was like, Uncle John, like, whatever it was that did this to this cow, it wasn't human. And I had told him about some of my experiences in the past too, like when I was 8 and when I was 12. And so he's like, you know what? I don't want you guys going up there. Don't touch it. Don't go near it. We don't know if it has a disease. We don't know if, it's got radiation sickness or, we don't know what it has. Just stay away from it. Because, like, he went up and checked it out, validated it. He's like, yeah, that doesn't look right. Stay the hell away. Don't go up the hill anymore. And then for, like, the next day or so until we were done with our little trip up to the cabin, we stayed close to home, and none of us went up the hill. Because we didn't want to find out. But yeah, so, like, we wrapped up our trip. We had a lot of fun. And that was that particular time. So,
do you know whatever happened to the... So it sounds to me like... It almost sounds like a traditional cattle mutilation, except for this time, it's a very curious circumstance what occurred to the cow. Because normally during a cattle mutilation, the body is somewhat intact. I've seen pictures, we've all seen pictures online of this, where certain parts from a cow are taken away. But the way you describe the cow, you basically are describing like its innards were sucked out, or it melted, whichever way you want to describe it. And I don't recall a cattle mutilation occurring to where the cow looks like it, in a sense, got sucked. All its blood and muscle and sinew and just everything got sucked dry. Very odd, very strange.
Right. Right. It scared the shit out of us, when we looked at that thing. It's it was like if you take, your clothing and you put them in a vacuum bag and you suck all the air out and then it shrinks it all down. But it's still clothing, but it just doesn't look right. And that's what it looked like. It almost looked like somebody took a 3D object and then smashed it down to like a 2.5-dimensional object. There was no blood, there was no filler. We just saw the bones and the skin just kind of smashed around itself. And it wasn't there, earlier the day before. We didn't see any cows or hear any cows up the hill, and my cousins had actually gone up there by themselves, so there was nothing up there earlier that day before that night happened. And then the following morning we go out and we find this thing just totally sucked up, and it looked like it had whatever happened to it, it caused pressure enough for its eyes and its tongue to protrude from its skull. So its tongue was literally sticking way out, probably 8 inches out of its mouth, or 6 inches out of its mouth. And its eyeballs were halfway popped out of its head. So
oh, wow.
The thing was just not having a good day.
Yeah. To say the least.
Right.
I mean, not to laugh about such a horrible circumstance that occurred to the cow, but I mean, sometimes you gotta find a little bit of humor in such a dastardly deed that occurred to the animal. So after your uncle told you to never return or go back to the area, you guys never did? You never just look back and see later on if anything changed, or?
No, because we'd already gone back up to that hill, twice before we told him. Because we went up there and we walked kind of down, and then we walked back up, and then but all within a couple of minutes of each other.
Right.
And then when we told him, we didn't go back up there after that. And then of course, a few days later, our trip ended, and we took a plane back to Arizona from Utah. So,
right.
we went back to my grandma's house, hung out with her for a few more days, but yeah, it was pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah, to say the least. So we're gonna switch gears here. We're gonna move forward in time a little bit to a very interesting and peculiar event. I would even say a widespread event that occurred in Arizona in the late 90s. This story received, at the time we didn't have much internet, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have social media, but nonetheless the story was still widespread in a lot of local news stations all across the Southwest. It was all over the news, and I remember when I was about 17 or so, I remember this story very vividly. And this story occurred in Phoenix. And in case people don't know what we're talking about I would say, by and large, this might be the largest mass UFO sighting that ever took place, and at least in this country, that does not get talked about at all, and no one really knows what occurred. I'm gonna let you go ahead and just tell the story, because this story to me is not only shocking and fascinating, but I'm perplexed as to why no one really talks about it.
Right. And so what we're talking about is, of course, the good old Phoenix Lights from 1997. To be specific, the date was Thursday, March 13th of 1997, which would have been about 8.5 months, almost 9 months after I saw the cow mutilation in Utah. And I was 14. Let's see, wait, right? 14? No, I would have been 14 at the end of 97, so I was still 13. And what had happened is this large craft, it looked like it was about 7 or 8 lights. I don't know. At one point, it looked like it was only like 6 lights. And then, of course, you had a couple of other ones that kind of showed up toward the end of this V shape. It was kind of like it was almost a perfect V shape, but it almost had it looked like it had like a doubled up light near the front. Like 2 wings kind of protruding back in a V. And I remember we were living in Mesa, Tempe border, off of Santa Barbara. Let's see, we would have been near Dobson and 8th Street, or Rio Salado and Dobson Road. That's where I was living at the time. And I remember seeing this thing flying up in the sky, but it wasn't like flying. Like, usually you hear a plane, like, because we had tons of planes that come in, just to come out of the airport. Sky Harbor is literally like right there. I mean, you get there in just like 2 minutes from where we were living if you were flying in a plane. So we were like, maybe it's another plane. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, that has a lot of lights for a plane. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where's like the blue lights? Where's the red lights that blink on it? And I'm thinking, well, is it like a bunch of helicopters together? And like these thoughts come into my mind. And then I remember back then we had the was it the Columbia, or I think it might have been the Columbia or Discovery shuttle that was flying around that same time, that was doing missions and International Space Station missions. So like different things like that, and the planes and helicopters all kind of came to mind. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what could this be? Is this like another ship that they're sending up to it? Is this a shuttle trying to land? And I'm thinking, okay, well, shuttles don't have this many lights. Shuttles aren't this big. I was a kid back then, so like I ballparked it. Like it looked like it was like a quarter mile wide. I mean, I could be wrong in my numbers, but that's what it looked like to me in the sky. It was just so huge. Because a full mile is 5,280 feet. So like a quarter mile, you're looking at what? Like trying to do the math.
About around 1,700 feet in width.
Right. So about 1,600, 1,700 feet. Is how wide this thing looked like it was. It was just massive. And the lights on it, the lighted areas, they were perfect circles, and they looked like they were on the bottom of this craft. And I would say it was like a boomerang shape, as it progressed through the sky. And when I saw it flying, it was going south to north, and then it started to turn west toward Phoenix and Scottsdale. and then of course it disappeared over the horizon. But it wasn't like like usually a plane or a helicopter, if they fly over, or like even a plane. Like if you have a plane fly over, it's going to continue to keep moving. It's not going to take its sweet time. This thing was just coasting. We couldn't hear any sound coming off of it. Like there was no engine noise, and that's what was so creepy about it is it was just like it was almost like chilling in the sky, but kind of drifting with just a slight ease to it, like a glider. But there was no permanent direction. This thing would just shift, and it would turn and then go another direction and shift and shift. There wasn't any direct propulsion. Like you couldn't see any engines that were pushing it. You couldn't hear any jet engines on it. I thought if these were flares or if they were something else, there would be another indicator, or they would have gone out by now. If it was a flare, it would have burned out. If it was somebody on a parachute, they would have made it to the ground already. We would have also seen that it would have started to come down more and more and more. And I remember, like a week later, Fife Symington getting on the news with this, mock-up alien guy, somebody in an alien suit. And he's like, yeah, we caught the culprit, making fun of it. And I'm thinking, dude, it's not funny. Like, what?
I do remember. I want to interject really quick. I do remember that it was a news conference, and I believe it was the governor of Arizona at the time. His name escapes me. I don't know why I want to say his name was.
Fife Symington.
Yeah, exactly. I want to say his last name began with an S. So he came and they made a joke about it, and just everyone laughed. A man in an alien suit came out. Everyone was laughing, and when I seen this, I wouldn't say I was angry, but I'm just like, how do you make such a huge deal of a craft that in all estimation we didn't build on this planet, that flies through our air space, you know what I mean? And he makes a joke about it, but after all was said and done, he actually came back later and admitted that he's seen the craft too, and that the reason why he did that news conference was because he didn't want to start a mass panic. So he actually witnessed the craft as well, but he just didn't want to say, "Oh, I've seen something," and start a widespread hysteria all across Arizona.
Right. And I think, personally, like on my level, people I've spoken to over the years, I would be cool. I would be completely fine with the disclosure. If somebody was like, you know what, yeah, in '97, that was really a UFO. Those were beings from either somewhere else on this planet that live underwater, or they're, from another galaxy, and they're visiting us, and they've been doing it for years or ages. Like, it would make more sense to come forward and spend that time saying what it was, rather than building up the fear of, what was it really? Why was it there? What was it doing? Was it going to hurt us or not? Instead of, because they spin that mockery, and I think that creates more panic in the long run, because then you have these people that start to, second guess, did I have a stroke? Am I going nuts?
Right.
See what I saw? Was it a hallucination? And then you're like, well, no, hundreds of thousands of people couldn't just hallucinate this.
Right.
All at the same exact time, and everybody calling the 911 operators and calling the FAA, and it happened. It really happened. I was there. I was watching it happen. 13 years old, watching this thing float through the sky and not hearing a single sound from it. But and then the other part of that news conference that really got under my skin is, why would you get on the news and waste all this time and resources, and just, money in general, out of the public's pocket to get on live TV when they could be doing something else that's productive, just to mock the public and downplay it only later on for him to admit it when he's finally out of office. So like that has like a certain place in my mind. You know, there's a certain place in hell for people like that play it that way.
You know,
personally speaking, you know.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, you can search up on YouTube the news conference, guys. When he came out, when they were setting up cameras and everything, I mean, people were thinking the governor is going to disclose that an aircraft, you know, I can't even call it an aircraft. We don't know what the hell it was. Flew through pretty much the state of Arizona. It flew from Phoenix. It was seen as far north as what's that town north of Phoenix in the mountains?
Sedona?
No, Sedona. I think Sedona is south. It was seen as far south as Tucson. Yes, it was seen as far north as Flagstaff, as far south as Tucson. So just to let everyone know, how far is Flagstaff from Tucson?
Well, I want to say it's about 3.5 to 4 hours because
yes,
it's about an hour and a half for me, an hour and a half to 2 hours for me to drive from where I'm at in Queen Creek, Arizona, out to Tucson. And it takes me about 2 hours to drive north to Flagstaff.
Correct.
So yeah, it's about 3.5 to 4 hours if you did like a straight drive. And that's doing like, you know, the speed limit is 65.
Exactly.
And this thing made it, up and back? Like, I think it went up and back 2 times, or
and
it was said that they saw it coming up and then coming back too.
Yeah, and guys, just to reiterate, it's not hard to find somebody that lived in Arizona at the time that didn't see it, because I've talked to them before. I've talked to a few people before that's seen it, and what you have told me is the same exact thing that they told me. It was shaped like a V. And I want to ask you a quick question. You said it was 1,600 feet in width. How long would you guess it was?
At least half that, you know, probably 800, you know, like another 800 feet.
Yeah.
From tip to like the middle of where the 2 wings ended.
Was there any kind of depth to it in terms of, like, you know, how you see a plane, you see the belly of the plane, you see the top of the plane, you would guess there's like 50 feet of depth to it. Could you guess in terms of like the depth of it?
Probably 50 feet, 40 or 50 feet high, I would say.
So
it looked like it was about 4 stories at least, you know, tall.
So this is a craft that is so large, and to say the least, conventional rocket power, conventional jet engines, any kind of engine that we have, that's, you know, that the public knows that we possess, you would guess as a you know, as just as an average adult, average citizen of the planet Earth, we don't possess anything that can power a structure to remain in the sky, to where it could just stay there, because to you it wasn't going fast enough where it could cause any kind of lift, right? It was floating.
Right. Yeah, it was just creeping along the sky. Like, we're talking, it was moving so slow that it was maybe moving a few feet every, you know, couple of seconds. Like, most jets or, you know, craft, when they're moving, you know, they're scooting along, you know, they're taking, you know, a couple hundred yards every, you know, second or 2.
Correct.
This thing was just like inching its way forward, you know, little by little by little. It was hovering. That's what it was doing, and that's an immense amount of weight, you know, for a structure that's like 4 stories tall, you know, 1,600 feet wide and 800 feet, you know, in length. For that kind of structure to stay in the air would take like either a super magnet or some kind of anti-gravity field. Like, there's just no way. Like, it wasn't moving anything. We didn't feel any airflow coming off of this. And for how high it was, I mean, he's not really going to, but there wasn't any breeze in the air, so nothing was moving. It was just dead still of the night. And this thing's just coasting along, and there was a little bit of a what do you call it? You could see like a little bit of the outline of it because the sun had been setting when this happened. So when it was going down, it was slightly lighting it up. So I could see the structure. It reminded me kind of like a stealth bomber, but like if somebody took the stealth bomber and cut a triangle out of the backside of it and made it more of a boomerang shape, and then more like not like a 45-degree angle, but maybe like a 35-degree, 40-degree angle from like the nose coming up. The way it was carved, or engineered, I should say. This thing was just built. It was built with perfect integrity, like perfect precision. Like it looked like it was cut with a laser. It was that spot on. There was no room for error. So whoever built this craft was, way ahead of what we've got. I mean, back then we had, 767s. I think were just barely making the market. So yeah, I couldn't imagine us trying to do something that was that much larger. I mean, well, what's the going length on a 767 or a 777?
I'm guessing. Wow, because that's quite a large plane. I'm guessing it's because I don't have a computer in front of me to just go ahead and Google it. But I mean, I would guess.
Yeah, length. So 767 length is 201.25 feet. And we're talking about 800 feet. So this thing was 4 times the length of a 767 and 8 times the width of the length of a 767.
It's very fascinating to just imagine the power that it would, or the fuel consumption that it would take to keep a craft that large up in the sky. But we're dealing with a species of creature, I don't know what else to call them right now, that possess a technology that's literally 50,000 years at least ahead of what we have. I mean, we have helicopters, they have these craft that, could disappear in the blink of an eye and bend space and time to where, they can go from our planet to God knows what else. At the end of the day, we don't know what the hell they're doing. We really don't know why they're here. You can listen to whoever you want to listen to, who's ever in the ufology community, but at the end of the day, we truly don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, as a whole, as humanity, I believe that we don't really know. But on a personal basis, from my experience, even I don't really know what the hell is going on. At this point, I feel like I've been tagged, and I'm just kind of being, checked in on every now and again, and then it just continues. We're gonna get into that further on the next podcast. We're gonna get in more in depth and with Mr. Gunnell's stories. Guys, this is only half of his story, so just please tune in because the next stories only get more fascinating as they go. And when he says that he feels that they just like kind of tagged him and just come back, he's not as my grandmama has said, they're not just whistling Dixie. He ain't whistling Dixie. So anyways, we're going to conclude this. Right. We're going to conclude this podcast. I'm Black Bigot. This is Robert Gunnell. The link to his channel will be in the description box below. The link to the other 2 videos will also be in that link. And please stay tuned. We got a lot more to discuss. I'm Black Bigot. I'm here with Robert Gunnell. Take it easy, and we'll be back real quick. Take it easy, guys. Peace out.